Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Good morning and welcome to Wis-Tv. I'm Jackson and this is my co-host Kate. Let's start with what's on the lunch menu. Today's lunch menu is beef patty and gravy, cream potatoes, green peas, roll, and sliced peaches. And the breakfast menu for tomorrow is cereal and banana. Did you know today is National Dr. Seuss Day? Each year, National Read Across America Day is celebrated on March 2nd. The birthday of Dr. Seuss, the annual event, is part of the Read Across America, an initiative on reading created by the National Education Association. Since the event is designed to encourage reading in children and is fostered through the schools. When March 2nd lands on a weekend, the day is observed until on the close. Congratulations to the 12U Girls All-Star Basketball Team for making it all the way to state. Let's wish them good luck. Good luck to Zanaya, Reese, Abby, Johanna, Maya, Natalie, Trinity, Valentina, Chloe, and Peyton. Today's riddle is, I shave every day, but my beard stays the same. What am I? The answer will be on tomorrow's news. Make sure you buy your yearbook soon for $30 or $35 if you want your name printed on it. Turn the money into Miss Takely. Now let's wish a special happy birthday to these Wiz kids.
The Story of Ruby Bridges by Robert Cole. Our Ruby taught us a lot. She became someone who helped change our country. She was part of history, just like generals and presidents are part of history. They're leaders, and so was Ruby. She led us away from hate, and she led us nearer to knowing each other, the white folks and the black folks. Ruby's mother. Ruby Bridges was born in a small town near Tylerton, Mississippi. We were very poor. Very, very poor, said Ruby. My daddy worked picking crops. We just barely got by. There were times when we didn't have much to eat. The people who owned the land were bringing in machines to pick the crops. So my daddy lost his job. And that's when we had to move. I remember us leaving. I guess I was around 4, I think. In 1957, the family moved to New Orleans. Ruby's father became a janitor. Her mother took care of the children during the day, and after they were tucked in bed at night, Ruby's mother went to work scrubbing floors in a bank. Every Sunday, the family went to church. We wanted our children to be near God's Spirit, Ruby's mother said. We wanted them to start feeling close to Him from the very start. At that time, black children and white children went to separate schools in New Orleans. The black children were not able to receive the same education as the white children. It wasn't fair, and it was against the nation's law. In 1960, a judge ordered 4 black girls to go to 2 white elementary schools. 3 of the girls were sent to McDonough 19, and 6-year-old Ruby Bridges was sent to the 1st grade in the William Franz Elementary School. Ruby Ruby's parents were so proud that their daughter had been chosen to take part in an important event in American history. They went to church. "We sat there and prayed to God," Ruby's mother said, "that we'd be all strong and we'd have courage and we'd get through any trouble that came. And Ruby would be a good little girl and that she'd hold her head up high and be a credit to her own people and a credit to all the American people. We prayed long and we prayed hard." On Ruby's first day, a large crowd of angry people gathered outside the Franz Elementary School. The people carried signs that said that they didn't want black children in a white school. People called Ruby names. Some wanted to hurt her. The city and state police did not help Ruby. The President of the United States ordered federal marshals to walk with Ruby into the school building. The marshals carried guns. Every day for weeks that turned into months, Ruby experienced that same kind of school day. She walked to the Franz school surrounded by marshals, wearing a clean dress and a bow in her hair and carrying her lunch pail. Ruby walked slowly for the first few blocks, and as Ruby approached the school, she saw a crowd of people marching up and down the street. Men and women and children shouted at her. They pushed toward her. The marshals kept them from Ruby by threatening to arrest them. Ruby would hurry through the crowd and not say a word. The white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone, except for her teacher, Miss Hurley. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with and to learn with and to eat lunch with. But every day, Ruby went into the classroom with a big smile on her face, ready to get down to the business of learning. She was polite and she worked well at her desk, Miss Hurley said. She enjoyed her time there. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. So Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom in an empty school building. Sometimes I'd look at her and wonder, how did she do it? Miss Hurley said. How she went by those mobs of people and then sat here all day by herself and yet seemed so relaxed and comfortable. Miss Hurley would question Ruby in order to find out if the girl was really nervous or afraid, even though she seemed so calm and confident. But Ruby kept saying that she was doing fine. The teacher decided to wait and see if Ruby would keep on being so relaxed and hopeful, or if she'd gradually begin to wear down, or even decide that she no longer wanted to go to school at all. Then one morning, something happened. Miss Hurley stood by the window in her classroom, as she usually did, watching Ruby walk toward the school. Suddenly, Ruby stopped. Right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people. She stood there facing all those men and women. She seemed to be talking to them. Miss Hurley saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered, what could Ruby be saying? The crowd seemed ready to kill her. The marshals were frightened. They tried to persuade Ruby to move along. They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. Then Ruby stopped talking and walked into the school. When she went into the classroom, Miss Hurley asked her what happened. Miss Hurley told Ruby that she'd been watching and that she was surprised when Ruby stopped and talked with the people in the mob. Ruby became irritated. "I didn't stop and talk with them," she said. "Ruby, I saw you talking," Miss Hurley said. "I saw your lips moving." "Oh, I wasn't talking," said Ruby. "I was praying. I was praying for them." Every morning, Ruby had stopped a few blocks away from the school to say a prayer for the people who hated her. This morning, she had forgotten until she was already in the middle of the angry mob. When school was over for the day, Ruby hurried through the mob as usual. After she walked a few blocks and the crowd was behind her, Ruby said the prayer that she repeated twice a day, before and after school. "Please, God, try to forgive those people. Because even if they say those bad things, they don't know what they're doing. So you could forgive them. You know, just like you did those folks a long time ago when they said terrible things about you." Later that year, 2 white boys joined Ruby at the Franz Elementary School. Their parents were tired of seeing the boys get into mischief around the house when they could be at school learning. The mob became very angry when the first white boys went back to school, but those boys were soon joined by other children. "We've been sitting back and letting our children get cheated out of an education because some people have tried to take the law into their own hands," one parent said. "It's time for us to fight for the side of the law and for our children's right to go to school and get their education." They all did get their education, Ruby and a growing number of boys and girls who went to school with her. By the time Ruby was in the 2nd grade, the mobs had given up on their struggle to scare Ruby and defeat the federal judge's order that New Orleans schools would be desegregated so that children of all races might be in the same classroom together. Year after year, Ruby went to the Franz Elementary School. She graduated from elementary school and then graduated from high school. Ruby Bridges is now married to a building contractor and has 4 sons who attended school within the New Orleans public school system. Now, she's a successful businesswoman. She's created the Ruby Bridges Educational Foundation for the purpose of increasing potential involvement in schools. As the first Black child to attend an all-white elementary school, Ruby Bridges shows us how brave and how forgiving a 6-year-old can be. Thank you.
Love ya. See ya. Bye.